Good evening and welcome to November's Will's webinar. I'm really looking and obviously my guest this evening, Manmeet, forward to it. There's so many to the topic that we're going to be discussing this evening. So we're going to be talking about so you can achieve the goals you'd love. Discussing a number of different things within this so that you can really have you on this evening.
Hi, Will. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
We've been trying to get this synced in the diary for a couple of months. Looking forward to it. But first things first, before we get stuck into what we're going to be speaking about this evening, for everyone that's on this evening, I just want to explain how you can make the most of this. So quite simply, what I would love you to do is, if you have a look on the screen, I've just posted something called the official webinar thread in my Facebook group. Now, we're going to use the official thread. Post the link. If you're not in my Facebook group currently, then you can join the Facebook group. It'll ask you for some questions for the purpose of ease. Thing on the 3 questions and hit enter. You can then join the group. I'll the official thread. Those of you that are already in the group, if you can just jump on that official thread for us, find it on Facebook in the okay, so that we know that everyone can hear us and it's all working smoothly, and then we'll get cracking. Hear us, it'll be an absolute waste. So if everybody could do that for us now, if you're the link, we'll be using the official thread, not the chat box, and ask questions. So what we will be doing this evening, obviously we're going to be getting stuck into the topic in a moment, but it is interactive. So if you have any questions about what I say, what Manmeet says, I really encourage you to take action and be involved in this with us. So I'm hearing Facebook ping off, which normally means that people are commenting that they can hear us, or they're joining the group, or both, which is great. So we'll get that done. Let us know that you can hear us okay and it's all working on. Right, we're in business. Great stuff. So Manmeet, for those you are, please feel free to tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is that you get up to.
So I'm an optimum performance expert, and I use the methodologies that I've learned in human behavior for the last 12 odd years, helping people overcome emotional blocks they've got that are stopping them from optimum performance, both in their personal as well as professional lives as well. Because no matter how much we try and say leave things that are happening in your personal life at the door when you're trying to do your work, it doesn't happen. So I help people basically get over any challenges they have that'll get them to achieve what it is in both their personal and professional lives.
Fantastic. And we met because we've both got a common interest in a particular wise John Demartini, and you've been studying John's work for quite some time.
Yes, I started studying with him in 2008. It was February 2008 I first ever came across him.
Okay, so you like Minnie. You fast forward 11 years from then, you're now quite a special student of John's.
I think all the students for Dr. Demartini are special, but I am a facilitator for him.
Yeah.
And so I have basically, there are a couple of levels of facilitation. You know, you're a student, you attend one of the training programs, you become a facilitator. You study more. I think I like to call it a degree, because really there's no difference. You do one degree, you become another level. You do another degree, you become another level. So currently, yes, I'm the only senior certified facilitator in Europe. for Dr. Demartini's work.
And to give you guys sort of the I mean, I wouldn't even call it coursework. Stuff you've done. I mean, this is no mean feat. The stuff that John reviews with you and goes up to mastery level and really understanding and unpack some of that, and obviously your own spin on the Demartini. I mean, I truly, well, he is specialist on human behavior.
Absolutely. Yeah.
In terms of the work, what I'm always curious field, and it is to have a, and what I mean by that is dives normally gone through some, they've had some sort of shift. Curious to know what it was that to the crux.
Sure. Okay, so it was 2005. I kind of got into personal development, and I've done a lot of courses like Landmark, Anthony Robbins. I spent some time with Bob Proctor. So been in the industry for about a good 4 or 5 years, and just studying all different types of methodologies and work. And then I wasn't diagnosed, but now knowing what it was, I kind of went into depression because I was trying to be happy, think positive, and, you know, search for this one-sided happiness. And I was thinking that everybody around me has this amazing life. Everything's going great for them. And I perceived that, you know, God has just dealt me the wrong cards. And I felt like everything was going really like downhill for me, but I was putting on this facade on the outside that I was great, I was happy. And, you know, the more I was trying to chase that one-sided happy life, the more my perceived negative challenges were coming in to help me, you know, balance myself, which is what I know now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to a point in 2008 that it was just health challenges, relationship challenges, family challenges. You know, I kind of call it issuesgalore.com that I had at the time. And so what happened, I had contemplated on ending my life. And I was thinking, you know what, that's just the better option than to stick around and deal with more challenges. So I also had, you know, watched The Secret, and Dr. Demartini obviously is in The Secret, but there's only a little like element that's covered of his work in that, and it's just so much more vast. But when a friend of mine told me to go and see Dr. Demartini speak in London in February 2008, I was not interested. He said, oh, that's, you know, Dr. Demartini from The Secret. I said, great, if it's got anything to do with Secret, I'm not interested because it doesn't work. Everything's not working for me. You know, it's just, you know, I was playing the victim story and almost like had my violin out, you know, and he just said, trust me, mummy, go and see him, just speak. And I trust my friend Dizzy Taylor with my life at the time. And so I said, great, I'll go. In those 2 hours, you know, I literally sat there with my arms crossed. I thought, what is this man going to tell me that I don't already know, you know, quite cocky. And he opened his talk that evening and he said, how many of you are into positive thinking? It's very interesting. I haven't heard him open the talk like that ever since. And so I felt like he was talking to me. But so me with another 300 people put our hands up, and he said, and how many of you still have negative thoughts? And so I was like, okay, I want to know what you want to say here. He was young at the time, so I want to hear what you say, young man. You know, and that was it. Really, what I heard that at that time. Those 2 hours gave me my next life.
Mm-hmm.
Because it made me want to question more. It made me want to find out what is it he's talking about, and how can we deal with challenges that he says are two sides, because he really awoke something in me that I went to him at the end, and I said, how can you say this and how can you say that? And he was willing to, you know, even spend that time to explain a few things, and just asked me, you know, are you booked on to my breakthrough experience? And I said, yeah. And he goes, you'll find that there's this, and, you know, obviously that was it. But I spent, well, I truly believe when I went to the breakthrough experience, I did have a transformational experience myself. And I knew that day, and I was there with my best friend, Vinny, at the time. And I said to him, I'm going to do this for other people. But I'm a firm believer that you don't try and help others until you've helped yourself. So I spent the next 4 years working on myself, as I said, issues galore. And that was it. And I kept, you know, I just kept working on using the methodology, working on my own perceptions, bringing them into balance, and then went further. And that's when in 2012, when I did my first ever facilitator training, and now I do this full time for people.
So a couple of things I want to, you, like many others, attended an event so powerful, or that you got this, the was feeling is almost like an language, an awakening, call it a lightning, the southern, what they're called, when where they like jump there,
yeah,
they're called, just like that. You wow, I want to do this. Empathize to you. I just wanted to bring this believer in that don't help others in the way is that you've got all your, and
no.
but don't know you stage where before you started, like all of us, we have challenged through that. But so for people that are maybe coaches that are listening to, they've got some of their own stuff going on. Enough of my stuff sorted to with other people.
I think if you're a coach and you're coaching people, one thing that has kind of stuck with me throughout time is you will never attract a client you're not ready for. And in the beginning years of my coaching, I attracted clients who had different challenges. And as I worked, and I continue to work, you know, I was doing the method earlier with a challenge I had today as well. So as you continue to do that, your level of awareness, as that grows, you have the clients who had those challenges as well that you attract into your life.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that there were a certain type of clients I wasn't too sure about working with, until when I started to use the Demartini Method to help my perceptions about that very topic. Then suddenly, the moment I did that, about a couple of days later, I attracted the same client who's going through that kind of challenge. So I think, when we get given an opportunity to serve a client, I have also, by the will, I've been in my years since 2012, 3 times I have stopped a coaching session with people, because I don't believe I can help someone unless I have seen the order in what they're going through, because I'm helping them to see the divine order and what's going on, to see the perfection, so that they get to that stage of gratitude, so they don't want to change it. If I can't see that perfection, there's no way I can take them to that. So I remember one client, got a bit cheesed up at me for stopping the session. And then when we came back on it a week later, something that was struggling with and stuck with him, within 20 minutes, we got that done. And he's like, I can definitely see you've done your work, because now that's where you've helped me. So, there's no shame in that. for coaches to go, hey, you know what, I can't help you right now, but let me just work on my stuff and come back to you next week. I have a coach. In fact, I have access to quite a few, Demartini facilitators. So if one's not available, I'll get on the phone with another, because it doesn't make you less of a coach if you're, getting help from someone else or working on your own things, because I do believe you're going to be able to serve the client from more of an authentic space than, I don't know if we're allowed to swear here, but bullshitting them.
I just wanted to pull it up, knowing you didn't quite grasp. There's three things that we're going to speak about that we mentioned about.
Yeah.
Is priorities. Talk to us about priorities. What do you mean by priorities?
Okay, so give you a little bit of a background on this. So this all information comes from a study known as axiology. Now, axiology is a study of values and worth, from dated right back to the ancient Greeks. It's actually the most important ology there is, but yet it's the least studied ology. And Dr. Demartini is the gentleman who obviously brought my awareness to this. Now, he does call it values and priority. The only shift I kind of make is that just to make sure that individuals understand that it's not values as we think it is. It's not honesty, integrity, and things like that. It's the moment you say priorities, people understand that, okay, it's a priority I have currently in my life. So we all have a hierarchy of priorities ranging from what's most important right down to what's least important. And that is running us on a subconscious level. And I call it the GPS. So I call it Genius Priority System for a couple of reasons. Your highest priority is where your genius is. So, you're a coach as well. Your genius is in your coaching. For those who have health as a high priority, their genius is in probably body transformation. Somebody who's a mom, her identity, her genius revolves around the highest priorities. And because the GPS, we know the definition of a GPS is actually guiding us to a destination, these priorities are guiding us on a subconscious level, and it's where we're making our decisions from. Because what we tend to do is, if it's aligned with our priorities, if it's going to fulfill something in our highest priority list, we're going to make a decision to do it. Because what we tend to do is we will make a decision based on what's in our perception going to give us more benefit over drawback, more gain over loss to our highest priorities. And then what we tend to do is anything that's lower in our priorities, we would tend to need outside motivation, external motivation, extrinsic motivation to help us do that. So I kind of, sometimes people say to me, are you a motivational coach or motivational speaker? The only reason I like to change that around is I don't want to motivate people to do something they don't want to do. I love to inspire them to do what they love to do. And that is because if it's something that's high on your priorities, you're going to be inspired from within to do. You don't need to be reminded. You're reliable, you're disciplined, you're focused. It's just second nature to you. I can tell you, just recently I've linked health and meal prep and things to my highest priorities. But before that, I needed a lot of motivation to cook things. So I delegated it to my mom. But now I'm a little excited about doing those kind of things because it aligns with my higher priority of health. So when we all have that list of priorities, from what's most important right down to what's least important, we are always going to also then create our emotions around our highest priorities. It's a bit like, if you see a mom that's walking with her child and, you go up to her and you say, what a beautiful child you have. Clearly, you've done an amazing job raising the child. Look how well behaved they are. The mom's going to perceive that you're supporting her highest priorities because kids are a high priority. So she's going to open up to you. So this is great to understand priorities with communication, because they'll open up to you. They'll want to be around you. You walk up to the same mom and you go, what's that you've created? They're going to feel quite challenged and not want to talk to you. They'll close down to you because you've just challenged them in their highest priorities. Now you'll understand why I'm saying this is the most important ology there is, because not in just human behavior, but understanding the other individual opens up communication. Because if you communicate to them in their priorities, they're more likely to be listening to you. Because I like to say this, Will, that everybody runs on one radio station, and it's called WIIFM. What's in it for me? So when we're living by our highest priorities, if you can communicate, you want me to do something, especially if you're in a relationship, you want me to do something. If I can't see what's in it for me, the answer is going to be no.
Mm.
And a no answer is just you haven't communicated value to me, right? So that's why I say all of these things I'm bringing up right now, it's just so important to understand other, human beings. It's actually that their own priorities are, running them subconsciously, and everybody's is very unique. It's like thumbprint specific. No two people have the same set of priorities. You may have similar, but you don't have exactly the same, because the moment you have two exactly the same, one's not necessary. Because the reason we have someone, whether it be in friendship or whether it be in relationship, is to fulfill the priorities that we perceive, to be kind of missing. I love Dr. Demartini's joke. He goes, the purpose of marriage is to delegate your low priority crap to them, because they got a high priority on it, so you can fulfill each other, right? So the moment we kind of see that, it makes communication very, very different. In team environments, in family environments, in relationships, you tend to live a very inspired relationship with individuals.
Couldn't agree more. Now, one that joined us late is the Open Community Facebook group. Any questions that you directly on the official, it doesn't look, but if you're not in the group, the link in, so already been answered. I'll question that I want to bring up. So obviously you mentioned the different, familiar, you've got biology, right? So there's all the obviously axiology priority. I effectively, but for those people thinking, well, how have I created these priorities? Said everyone's got a unique set of priorities that are sort of no different to their fingerprint. How have they created them, and
Great question. So the way that they're obviously running us subconsciously, but how you make them come from your subconscious into your conscious mind, so you're aware of where they come from. Dr. Demartini's come up with a value determination process that he takes people through, and it's available, on his website. But really, to do I'll give you a couple of the four key kind of questions, the four top questions that you can just find out easily. Is asking, what do you fill your space with? So like in my office, you'll be able to see there's a bookshelf here that you can't kind of see, but on there I've got books of self-mastery, I've got business books, and then right at the top I've got health. But my self-mastery, which helps me with my coaching, there's two shelves with that. So I clearly have a high value on self-mastery. That means working on myself as well as my coaching. So what do you fill your space with? What do you spend your time on? Other than sleeping, anytime we say we don't have time to do something, it's beep. Because it's not that you don't have time, because we all have the same time. It's just not a high priority. And that's okay. I just want to, the whole point of this is to have people empowered to know that it's not about beating yourself up. It's about understanding what your priorities are, and that, you're not going to live outside of them, because expecting yourself to live outside of them is unrealistic. So if you don't have time to do something, it's not that you don't have time, it's just not a priority, and that's okay. So it's, what do you fill your space with? What do you spend your time on? What do you spend your energy on? We tend to always have energy when it comes to things that are most important. I'll give you an example. On Saturday, I was here in the office till 5:30 in the morning because I was preparing for the workshop I'm doing this weekend. But some people said, "Oh my God, like, did you not want to sleep?" And it's like, no, I had energy. I could have stayed even longer. I just knew that, in the morning I had to do certain things. So I was like, better get a couple of hours kit kind of thing. So you tend to have a lot of energy. Back in the day, well, people used to ring me at 11 and say, "Let's go out." That's what I definitely had energy for at that time, right? And then it's what you spend your money on. So when you take into account your monthly budget, and you look at what are the three things. So for any of these questions, you're looking at the top three answers and seeing what repeats. But we look at the top three answers. So if you're looking at money, you'll tend to spend money on what's important. Now, I don't drink. I don't smoke. I just don't have a value on that. It doesn't mean I'm wronging somebody for drinking or smoking. But I remember when I was younger, well, I say younger, only a few days ago, that kind of thing. But you meant to agree, Will. You meant to say, "Yes, Manmeet, you're very young."
I got thrown slightly because I saw a question come up that I want to ask you in a second from Kevin.
Okay, yeah. Sure. So basically, when we look at money, anytime we're saying, "You know what, I just can't afford that right now," it's not that you can't afford it. It's either you don't see the value on how it's going to fulfill something that's important to you, or it's just not important. That's, and again, I kind of say there's nothing wrong with that. Unless you see the value in that, then you're not going to want to spend money on it. So we'll tend to fill our space, we'll tend to spend our time, we'll spend our energy, and we'll spend our money on the things that we value the most. Those are 4 questions out of the 13 determinant questions, but we can typically ask them and straight away we'll tend to know what are the themes that follow that we can actually see. I mean, like, for example, I'm spending my time and energy on coaching and teaching and building the business. And then I'm also, what I spend money on. One thing is that if you are saving money, the minute you get money, you're going to spend it on whatever's most important. So here's a key one for the audience that are watching. Unless you have creating financial wealth in your top 3 priorities, do not expect to be wealthy. Because if you don't have it, what you'll do is you won't save any part of that money anytime you get it. You'll spend it on whatever's most important. So, if you've got family and then you've got socializing, then you've got shoes and shoes in your priority list, and you've got wealth. Yes, that's exactly what I used to spend a lot of money on. I've got about over 100 pairs of shoes, Will. So, you're not going to be financially wealthy, but there is a way, which we'll talk about when we get to the goals part, that you can actually bring up financial wealth, because that's the goal that most people have, that they want to bring up in their priority. So you can do that too.
Great. Because I thought
wealth in the top 4 or 5, 3. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, you said I always thought it was top 4.
No, top 3. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Ask the question: change as you grow. Disagree.
Absolutely. I'm sure Kevin would agree. What you had as a priority 10 years ago may not be the same right now. As I was saying earlier, I had energy for people asking me to go out, and I put a post, like a story up the other day. That Saturday, I used to come home at that time from clubbing at night.
Yeah.
And now I'm coming home from building content for a workshop. You can clearly see my priorities, have shifted.
On this, we're talking about the importance of priorities, and I've got 2 questions. Priority create enable someone to priorities. You is self-mastery, and I know where they've come from. For those that are the, I suppose, what created.
So our priorities, known as values, are created from what we perceive to be most missing in our life. So a little bit like, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we kind of fulfill certain needs and we go up the level, but based on what we don't perceive as being fulfilled. So self-mastery, if you have it as a high priority, it's probably because you're still kind of working on yourself a lot more than you think that, you've had that fulfilled. So when I started this work, self-mastery was my number one, as well as learning. Learning actually was number one, and then it was self-mastery. So because I've been doing so much work, it's still in my hierarchy, but it's like at number 4 or 5 now. Because what I'll tend to do is I'll kind of go, okay, I've got a chance here to do some work on myself, or I've got a client who really needs me. What's my first priority? It's coaching and teaching, so I'm going to take that one on. When I didn't know enough about how to coach and teach, I had learning as the higher priority. So I would learn more about that because I perceived that to be most missing. Now, by all means, it's not that I know everything. Learning is still, it's my number 2 priority. So it's not that I know it all now and I don't need to learn. But it just means that the order, just like Kevin said, they can change based on what you perceive to be most missing. So sometimes, if I just take the very simple example, we're searching for a partner, let's see. Once we have the partner, so like if you're on dating sites and you're going on dates, you have a high value on finding a partner. So your priority may be searching for a partner. The moment you get the partner, you're basically, what's the word I'm looking for? Not molding. You're doing it with the relationship. You can see relationship such a high value for me. You're basically building the relationship. That's the word I was looking for, building. So when you're building the relationship itself will be a high priority. Then there comes a point when you're going, right, when are we getting married? And then so you go, okay, so now marriage is a high priority because you're seeking that because you perceive it to be missing. Then suddenly the kids become the void. And then you then seek the kids. So you'll start to look at baby books and you'll start to watch baby videos and, you'll start to go, oh, to more babies and things like that, right? So anything you perceive to be most missing, which is a void, will become a high value and priority for you. And the great news is that we never run out of voids. So when we don't run out of voids, we'll never run out of values and priorities in our life.
And you can consciously choose your priorities.
Yes. Yeah.
A way of thinking, a perception of a void, right?
Yeah. So let's, seeing as you've asked, let's touch on the linking process for priorities. So if you perceive money to be missing, okay, so creating wealth is missing. Let's say my life, it's missing and it's not in my top 3, but I want it to be a priority for me. I'd love for it to be there so I can create more wealth. Well, what you do is you break down, creating wealth into things like that are can-do steps. So, for example, creating wealth isn't just as easy as just saying creating wealth. You've got to save money, number 1. You've got to learn about investing money. But before any of that, you've also got to pay yourself first. Okay, you've got to know all the ways that you can invest in money to build that. So these are all like can-do steps. So whatever you perceive you're needing most motivation on the outside to do so, if you're not saving, number 1 is if you're not saving at least 10% of your income right now, that's the number 1 thing you should link to your priorities. So the moment we start asking, how does saving 10% help me in my highest priority of children? Or if it's, health, how does it help me in that area? Or how does it help me, in my coaching and teaching, for example? Okay. So when you start to link that and you make enough links, this isn't about asking 5 or 6 answers. You do it until you actually feel it inside that there's a shift in your body that there is now, I can't wait to save. Because what happens is in that moment, that's when your motivation shifts from I need motivation to save to I'm inspired to save. This exercise itself, if you did this even 10 minutes a day, you could come up with about 30 links and take every single thing about creating wealth, every can-do step, and start to actually go, okay, how does that help me? How does that help me in my highest priority? I recently just did health. I'm on a fitness program, and the one thing that I really wasn't getting back into doing and I was needing motivation for was basically the eating well, training, but definitely the meal prep. So meal prep was something I really needed motivation for, and then also eating well. I took those two things first, and then I kept asking myself, how does eating well help me in my highest priority of coaching and teaching, in my learning, and then in my building the business? So it's like I did all three of them like that each. And I realized that health as such, and you can tell how aligned I am with it now, is because before, if you ask me, I get teary only because I realize now that actually having the optimum health allows me to stay on the planet longer, to share the message longer. And my coach, that I did a podcast with the other day, when he saw, he said as well, he goes, "You've definitely shifted your reason, your why about making something like that a priority." So that same inspiration to create wealth, when you realize how saving money is going to help the kids, that's teaching them how to do, manage money. It's teaching the kids how to deal with finances. You're empowering them so they don't have to rely on other people. It's like when people connect all these links, of course they're going to be different because everybody's priorities are different, so they've got to link it to their priorities.
So one of the things that you've just done there, you've demonstrated there, and I know for you there's indicators that you are living, or what I would refer to as congruently, and that. But what are those tears for you when you have those moments, teary moments? What are those for you? For people being upset, is it? So what is that for you?
You see, what happens is this linking process that I've just shared with you, it's about changing the neural pathways in your brain. So far, the neural pathways until a good few weeks ago were saying eating well is coming in the way of your coaching and teaching. Eating well is going to require you to take time out of your coaching and teaching to prepare meal prep. Going to the gym is less time to coach. So all I was seeing was just hindrance. The moment that hindrance switches to how it's going to help me, the tears of inspiration are what we feel. Because now that is when I said that huge word, motivation, and the difference between motivation and inspiration, because anything that's aligned with your highest priorities, no one needs to remind you to do. And that's when you're inspired to do it from within. So the tears of inspiration, these are, when you see that connection, those are tears of inspiration. When you're grateful for something, of course, they're tears of gratitude. So very different to tears of sorrow, because in tears of gratitude and tears of inspiration, your heart is open. And when your heart is open, other people feel it because you're coming from that inspired space. So sometimes you may try and stop it as well. Like, I'm going, but when your heart is open, you can't help but have those tears of inspiration.
And it's been proven now by science. Its own, what's the word?
It's got to change. It changes form as your heart opens, as your emotions. Yeah. There's a great. Did you see that? There's a great TED talk on that.
It was even the other night. I was watching it on a doctor talks about the heart and the frequency of the heart. Tears. If you take tears of inspiration and tears of sadness, they have a different as well. So the other thing is, well, are in a relationship or aspiring to be in a relationship of some relationship. Now, people talk about, but if you're looking to be in an intimate relationship, should word intentionally, should your values be opposite? Should your values be the same? Because people talk about opposites attract. So what's your opinion on if you're looking to be in an intimate relationship and your values, your priorities in obviously your to use your terminology.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of not answer from a should be perspective, because you're going to meet people along the way that you've already got a filtering system going on. And that filtering system is based on your priorities. Is what they're doing going to help me fulfill my priorities?
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is the thing is we seek and search for those that support our values and our priorities, but we attract those that challenge us to help us grow.
So say that again. So we
seek individuals who support our values and priorities, but we attract those who challenge them to help us grow.
Interesting.
So what that is we'll tend to go, initially when we meet individuals and we see them to be supporting our priorities, we will only see one side, and we'll tend to get, especially because you're talking about romantic relationships, what we tend to do is we'll get very infatuated with them. We'll think, oh my God, they think the same way I do. They like the things I do, and they're supporting my values and my priorities. So they must be good for me. But remember that good and bad filtering system is just because they're either supporting or they're challenging, and they're just labels. When actually an individual is neutral. And again, when you know that same individual, what happens is when we're infatuated with them, you challenge them enough and you're going to see another side to them. Because all individuals, all human beings, no matter what color, caste, or creed, with that priority system, they also have both sides of behaviors. They're going to be nice and mean, kind and cruel, giving and taking, based on their priority system. So what happens is individuals, when they go to dates, they bring both sides of themselves to the dinner date or the coffee date. But if we perceive they're supporting us, we'll go back from that date and go, oh my God, they're amazing, they're like this. And I love coaching clients just before they're about to get married, just to make sure that they're not infatuated, by the way, because most marriages happen in infatuation stages, and then afterwards they go, you weren't like this before, when actually they were, you were just blind to it.
Explain for those that don't between an infatuation.
Sure. Infatuation is more about seeing one side being perceived to be only good, only supportive, only nice. Love, the way that is, I've now learned how to redefine that and really learned the true meaning, is that embracing both sides is actually what true love is. You're embracing both the support and challenge, the nice and mean, with no desire to change that individual. Because how bored would you get if you were with a partner that's like, yes, anytime you want, anywhere you want it, it's like, no. You're just gonna be, please give me a man or give me a woman, So when you see that you're actually getting both, is the moment where you are then growing, because you're having a balance of both support and challenge, and you're not infatuated. So when we look at the infatuation and you're elated about that individual, you're seeing all the perceived good and you're blind to the downsides. I'll tell you a funny story actually. When I was going on dates and stuff, if I met a guy that I really did like, and by the time I'd finished at the date, and by the time I'd go back home, I'd ask myself, so what do I perceive I didn't like about them? And I remember going on one lunchtime date, and 1 hour I was so infatuated with this guy. Like, I was like, oh my God, he's so intelligent, and he's good looking. So all I did was, by the time that actually that evening, I looked at where in that 1 hour.
I don't remember us going on a date, Manmeet. I don't remember us going on a date. I think we were like,
damn, you haven't asked me yet, Will. Yeah, with this
sorry,
guy, and so yeah, that's cool, no problem. And so I just asked myself, well, where was he not intelligent? Because we're all intelligent in the areas that are high priority. And I keep bringing it up just to kind of explain to you that I'm not intelligent in cooking. I don't know, my mom's teaching me right now, but you should see her intelligence. So she's actually going to be making a cooking book and all this kind of stuff. Her intelligence clearly is around that. My intelligence is around more this coaching and teaching and the universal principles of learning that and teaching that. I don't have intelligence in the areas that are low priority for me. So all I did was just look at, like, this guy showed up, both sides of him. I clearly was blind to the downsides. And then I looked at what was the balancing factors in his looks that I didn't like as well. And then at the end of it, I was just like, huh, okay, this is a guy that's got both sides. So let's just see what happens. So now I'm no longer attached, and because the things we infatuate with, the things we admire are the very things in our life that we don't want to lose. So if you're in a relationship and you're fearful of losing the relationship, it's very likely that you're infatuated with your partner, and infatuated that you're only seeing one side, because we only fear there's only two fears in life we have. We either fear losing what we infatuate with. So the things that we admire the most, we fear losing those, or we fear the gain of the things we resent. Well, I know you would agree that the things that we resent, we don't want them in our life. And the moment we get them, we fear getting them. It's like, you think about, an aunt or a cousin or a friend that you absolutely, in your perception, hate. They come around and stay for the weekend, and you're like, great, this weekend's going to be amazing, isn't it? Because you're fearing the gain of that very thing. And those are the two fears that we, experience. And that's why, again, that infatuation and the resentment is revolved around our highest priorities and our low priorities. We're going to, somebody, that comes and supports it, we're going to obviously be seeing they're supporting our values. Somebody that comes and challenges it, we're going to resent them too. But the wisdom lies in seeing that individuals are playing out both sides, and they're going to support and challenge you as needed, as well. Because I don't know if you got another question there, but if I just expand on that a little bit, is that all right?
Yeah, go on, by all means. So
the moment you're above equilibrium and you yourself are infatuated with yourself, so you're cocky about things, you're kind of perceiving that you're better than other people. What you do is you take your list of priorities and your GPS and you try and impose it onto other people. And the moment you do that, you're living in what I call a careless relationship. You're caring less about their priorities. You're caring more about your own. And the more you go above equilibrium, the more you get elated, the more you're going to attract humbling circumstances to bring you back into equilibrium. So you go home from a great day at work, and whether you're married or you're single, your friends will play out this part. For me, my parents played out this part. It's the more I would think I was having an amazing day, I've just done a great job at work, I'd come home and they'd criticize the hell out of me. So the balancing equation of the person as well who's at home, or it doesn't necessarily even have to be at home. Sometimes you can get on a call, something. I mean, actually, why don't we just tell them the example of but just before we came on here, and I was saying to you, I haven't really prepared, Will, but it's okay, we'll just have a conversation, and literally in that moment I got slightly cocky, didn't I? And then as I got that, I was pouring in my protein shake and it went all over me, right? So for me, I just said to you, I said, great, a great feedback from the universe to let me know I was getting slightly cocky there, which is why I then, obviously humbled myself before we came on to this, so that we would set that intention of coming in more from a balanced perspective. And it was a reminder for me that I hadn't set an intention for the webinar. So anytime we go above equilibrium, we're going to attract humbling circumstances. Anytime you're below equilibrium, so you're perceiving you're less than individuals, what we'll tend to do is we'll try and change ourselves according to other people. We'll compare our priorities to other individuals, think they're great, they're amazing, I'm going to try and change myself to be like that. I think you, like me, because we're coaches, we have sometimes clients who want to try and be like us as well. And, I humble myself in front of them, which is why on Facebook, and I know I've seen your posts as well, we're very real. Not all coaches are, but we'll put up the stuff we're going through just so individuals can see that we're just as human as they are. But what we'll tend to do is then we're in a careful relationship with people. We're walking on eggshells. When you're new in a relationship, you're like, sure, we'll go Chinese today, or sure, we'll go Indian today. And it's like, anything you want, darling, because in that moment, you are playing less than, and you're trying to make yourself more like that. the wisdom lays in not a careless or a careful relationship, but staying in a caring relationship, which is the equilibrium in the middle optimum ground, which is I get your priorities met and you get my priorities met in the same transaction, same interaction. And in that, there's caring. I care about your values and your priorities, and you care enough about mine. So it might be, okay, you want to go Chinese and I want to go Indian. Let's go to an Indio-Chinese place, right? And then you can eat what you want and I eat what I want. There's a few of them around now. But does that make sense? So even if we're above equilibrium, we'll attract the humbling circumstances. When we're below it, we actually attract pride building circumstances. So people, when you think you haven't done a great job as well, and you go home and you go, you know what, I had such a bad day, your wife or your husband or your parents will go, you know what, it's not that bad. You're actually not that bad. You know, if you're kind of beating yourself up, someone's going to come along to build you back up again, because that's what nature is doing, is providing you the individuals that you need, because what's happening is it's trying to bring us back to homeostasis, bring us back to the middle at all times.
Amazing. Free to ask on the official. Having goals in alignment. Spoken about that. Having goals in alignment. We've spoken about link your goal. You can link values and the link be inspired rather than have to be motivated. Managing emotions. You're striving to. We have, but if you persist feeling lots of frustration around, what do you do? What do you do? Let's be start, because they're the things when people feel stressed, frustrated, overwhelmed, upset. When striving towards the goal, how do you manage that?
So I'll go on to that for just 1 second, Will. I just want to reiterate something about the goal setting that I didn't say. Now that we've discussed priorities, just know that your goals that you set, if you don't set them in alignment with your priorities, you're going to frustrate yourself and you're going to beat yourself up. So if I had a priority without having health on my priority list to become healthy and lose weight, I'm going to frustrate myself and wonder, why am I not losing weight? Why am I not doing it? Because I'm going to go for the easy option, because while I'm coaching and teaching, it's going to be in the way. And the second thing is, so I say two things. You either change your goal to set a realistic one that's more aligned, or you change your set of priorities. So you either change the goal that's more aligned with your priorities, or you change your priorities. How do you do that? By doing the linking process. So just wanted to reiterate that, so that we've answered that for tonight, that, you know, why, if you're frustrating yourself about not getting a goal, just take a step back and go, is this aligned with my priorities? Do I have a plan? You know, because what happens is, if we don't have a plan, also that could be the other thing. It might be something aligned with our priorities, but you know, it's just we don't have a plan for it. Well, clearly, then you just make one with someone like you, okay? And then there is also the one that's completely impossible. You know, like if I really want to become a ballerina dancer right now and give up my coaching and teaching, it's probably an impossible goal, unless I actually completely shift my priorities to do that. So just wanted to cover that. Now, as you're going through life and you're trying to achieve these goals, you are going to have emotions come up. And I kind of touched about it a little bit earlier, about the two fears that we kind of have. So when we've got a goal, we want to achieve it more than we don't want to achieve it. So we've already got an imbalanced perception. But let's just talk about, along the way, we come across everyday challenges. Now, those challenges, unless we see they are actually on the way of us achieving our goal and our priorities in life, we're going to feel like they're in the way of our life. So there are a couple of questions. I call them optimum mindset questions, but they're questions from the Demartini Method. If you are experiencing a challenge that you perceive to be negative, so someone's done something to you, they've displayed or demonstrated an action or inaction, and you have labeled that bad, you've disliked it, you've despised it in your perception, the question you want to ask is, how is what they're doing right now, because if they're doing it or done, how did them displaying or demonstrating that action or inaction help me fulfill my highest priorities in that moment and from that moment on? So, for example, and I do this, I encourage my clients and my students do this through a gratitude journal, is that we, writing the gratitudes at night. But if you go to sleep with an imbalanced perception about what goes on during the day, your subconscious is trying to process that. So if you process it with your conscious mind before you go to sleep, A, you're going to get great sleep, and B, you've just balanced the perception you thought, and you just go to sleep with a lot more gratitude. So earlier we were talking about tears of inspiration. Now I just want to talk about tears of gratitude. The moment you ask that question and you keep listing the benefits to you, and I really want to point something out here, you're not listing the benefits to make it a positive thing. It's not making something that happened you perceive negative positive now, and then it's great that it happened. No. It's about listing enough benefits that you see that it had both sides. It had equal benefits as it did drawbacks and disservice to your high priorities. You're already aware of how it was a drawback. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a negative emotion around it. But you want to see, how is this a benefit? And you keep listing it until you get that tear of gratitude and there is no desire to change what that individual just did or didn't do as well. Because sometimes we go, someone didn't return my call and I'm pissed off. So it's either action or inaction. Once we get to that, you will naturally, what happens is as you're listing the benefits, your brain is basically remodeling. As it does that, there's just an extra little part that goes from your brain into your heart, and your brain and heart connect. In that moment, you cannot help but open your heart, and the tears of gratitude come, because you are just grateful for that individual. And when you're grateful for that individual, I like to call them stars of the universe, helping us and guiding us to what's most important. So I'll give you a quick example. Back in March, my brother challenged me quite a bit on one day, around something that was going on at home, about the space that I had at home. Anyway, I stormed out the house and I came to these offices that I'm in now. And this office, this office building was somewhere that I wanted an office in last year, October. They were fully booked. I tried again in December, they were fully booked. Tried again in the new year, they were fully booked. In February, I thought, you know what, forget it. I'll just do my office from home, and then I'll just look in a couple of months. That argument that I had with my brother made me leave in a huff. I came straight here and I said to them, do you have an office? They said, ma'am, we just have one left. It got available this morning. Now, I know in that moment that I chose to, as soon as she said that, I was absolutely grateful for what had happened with my brother. I think even my dad was in on it, right? But in that moment, I didn't desire to change what they had done. I saw it as them helping me get the exact office I've been wanting to get for about 7-8 months. And I would not have done that had it not been for their action. And that is seeing that in that moment, there is no, oh, it was a great thing, it happened. No, it was equally both sides until it's neutral. And in that moment, because you see, every behavior that every individual displays is neutral until we judge it, because he challenged me in my highest priorities, which was around my office, I labeled it bad and negative, and then I made a negative emotion around it. The moment I could see the benefits of that in that moment, and just see the rollerball effect of his actions, I was grateful. And I went back and I said, thanks for that interaction. I've just got the office I needed, and in that moment, you become more empowered around your emotions. It's more emotional mastery than this emotional volatility that is all our highs and lows about wanting to change things. And then equally, the second question is that sometimes we have something that's going on in our life on that day that's amazing. So for the coaches who are on the call, you sometimes think, oh, I got a client today, and it's a client I've been wanting to work with. I remember when I bagged a pretty big client and I was slightly I had a positive emotion around it, let's say, okay? In that moment, I got off the call and I wrote down a list of all the drawbacks of me taking that client on, how is it going to hinder me from fulfilling my highest priorities, until I saw that getting that client was actually just neutral. Again, not making something positive a negative thing. It's just bringing it back into balance. It's such a key thing. And this is actually what is so important. And it might be challenging some of your people on the call, because it goes against the trillion positive thinking industry. It's not the norm to make things positive. That like a magnet, you cannot get a one-sided magnet. So it's about embracing both sides of the magnet. That helps us embrace both sides of the life. And actually, this is the very thing that got me out of my depression, wanting not to end my life, because I was like, hang on a minute, there is no such thing as just a positive life. There is no such thing as just a peaceful, seeking only happiness life. I'm now more fulfilled embracing both sides of my life, because I see I'm getting both positive and negative in every moment, and I'm not desiring to change it. Anytime I'm desiring to change it, I pull out the Demartini Method, of course, that that helps me balance my perceptions and emotions.
At least in it, because like you said, your industry, you are happiness. You frame the word happiness, or you talk about having, just because what most people associate.
Yes,
So
exactly.
Really, it's about being content. What you're talking about is, it's not the feel happy, do something good. So what is your life in? What is that, if you like, that you're striving to live in?
So my day-to-day is to reach an optimum level. That's why I call the company Optimum Performance, because it's not about peak performance. Okay, it's not about positive thinking. It's about the optimum mindset and optimum performance, because that's where you're more in action. When you're in a positive or a negative emotion, you're in reaction. Positive is because something is taking up time and space in your mind, because you think it's happy, you think it's good, you think it's positive. Anything that's negative in our perception is taking up time and space in our mind too. So when we're in that optimum, it's not taking up time and space, because we see both sides, and then we just go ahead, we just basically plow forward to achieve what it is, our goals, our dreams. We go forward with that. I'm glad you said that. When you say happiness, you mean fulfillment, but most people don't. And I'm glad you're educating people on that. But I have actively changed the word to fulfillment, because in fulfillment is the embracing of both sides. It's not about just looking for happiness. That if that fulfillment is content, well, we're going to have fleeting moments of that contentment, of that fulfillment, because of that gratitude in that optimum level. Fulfillment is all about knowing what your priorities are and perceiving that you're achieving them. That's how you know you're living a fulfilled life. But in the moments of having a balanced perception, you're only going to have balanced perceptions, and that whether you call it enlightenment moment, in moments of your life. So you have a judgment, you think something's positive and negative, you bring it back into balance, you move forward into your next judgment. And again, it's another split, because anytime we have a split perception, be it positive or negative, it is stored in our subconscious as an unconscious split, and it will drive us until we balance it. And the moment we balance it, most of the times you can't even remember it happened, because it's no longer something you've got an association with that's positive or negative. Does that make sense? Did I answer the question?
Yeah, no, definitely, 100%. Been great having you on this evening. My point of view, and in there, you've got some cogs going.
Great. That was the whole intention.
Cogs going. So please post them in the official thread now. But whilst people are taking time to answer any questions, this is really interesting. I'd like to know more about Manmeet's optimum thinking, or optimum way of thinking, your whole concept behind it, and what it is that you teach. How can people connect with you? How can people find out more?
Well, you can go onto Facebook and like my page, Optimum Performance Solutions Int. So that stands for international. You can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn under my name, which you've tagged me on. Feel free to like me on there. On my website, optimumperformancesolutions.com. Under the events page, I have the events for both Dr. Demartini and myself. I do have a workshop coming up this weekend. Unfortunately, it is sold out, but I'm looking forward to having you there. Will, you got in there early.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to being there.
Yeah, but I'll be doing one probably next year now. So you've missed the boat for this year. Unless anybody wants to join me in Delhi in India, I'm launching there in December as well. So that's on there.
Sounds good. Okay, well, look, Manmeet, on behalf of everybody that's tuned in and been listening, thank you so much. Extremely grateful to have you on and sharing your personal story, which I'm sure is inspirational for people and for people seeing where you've gone, where you've got to, and obviously sharing these nuggets of wisdom that you have done this evening. So thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on Will's webinar.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very humbled that you invited me on here, and I thanks for everybody who joined in. Thanks for everybody who's listening to the replay. I hope that today has given you some value, and at least you've taken away one thing from today.
Good. Guys, it's been a pleasure. Manmeet, again, thank you. Everyone else so far. So I'm going to sign this off. We've already done a couple of
Great.
Pleasure. I've really enjoyed it, Manmeet. Until
Thank you.